Let's talk about the Geneva Summit. US President Joe Biden and Russian President Vladimir Putin met in Switzerland on Thursday. What did they achieve? How did it go? No breakthrough, no hostility. That's how Putin summed it up. But we can add to the list. No joint communique, no joint lunch, a handshake, a chaotic photo op, 3.5 hours of tense discussions, and then 2 separate press conferences. What did they talk about? Cybersecurity, human rights, trade relations, Ukraine, Syria. The agenda of the summit was very much on the expected lines, as was the lack of consensus. We've stitched together the highlights from the 2 separate press conferences that took place after the summit. Take a look at this first.
That certain critical infrastructure should be off limits to attack, period. By cyber or any other means.
According to US sources, the majority of cyber attacks in the world are performed from US cyberspace.
So human rights is going to always be on the table, I told them.
Guantanamo still works. It does not comply with anything, neither international law nor the US laws, but it still exists. There are CIA prisons that work in European countries as well, where they do torture people. What is that? Are those human rights? I don't think so. We have touched this topic. I cannot say that we went into detail, but as far as I understand President Biden, he agrees that the basis of the settlement in southeast Ukraine is laid in Minsk agreements.
I communicated the United States' unwavering commitment to the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. I made it clear that we will not tolerate attempts to violate our democratic sovereignty or destabilize our democratic elections, and we would respond. I guess it was a total of 4 hours. Was good, positive. There wasn't any strident action taken. Where we disagreed, I disagreed, stated where it was. Where he disagreed, he stated.
As for the overall assessment, I believe that there has been no hostility. On the contrary, the meeting took place in a constructive spirit. That's quite appealing, and I don't think that we speak the same language on the whole, but it doesn't mean that we should look into each other's souls, eyes, and swear eternal love and friendship. Not at all. We protect interests of our countries and our people, and these relations are primarily pragmatic, first of all.
Not only were the worldviews different, Biden and Putin also differed in their body language. Eye contact was limited. Biden sat cross-legged. Putin sat casually with legs spread and taking up much space. Experts have some very interesting things to say about Vladimir Putin's body language.
There was one time when he may have said a pleasantry, like he was happy to be there, or happy to speak with Biden, and you saw him reach up and do something with his eye. He kind of like he was wiping his eye. And what that indicates is a signal of deception. So he wasn't being really honest when he was making a pleasantry. Also, if you noticed his hands, one was cupped. They were on his lap, but one was a little cupped. And that was indicative of anger. When people have a cupped hand, that's oftentimes an indication of anger. And the most telling of all was he had the ball of his foot show. When that happens, it means you want to get out of there. You can't wait to get out of there. When you see shuffling of the feet.
Well, this is one interpretation. Others may differ. It's interesting nonetheless. Also interesting is how the media can be way off the mark in their analysis sometimes. The Western media said that Putin was seeking validation through this summit. It's hard to agree with. Well, Putin is not new to this game. He knows the cost of a Cold War. He has seen the Soviet Union crumble. He would not want a repeat of it. During the press conference, he made it very clear that he was not looking for eternal love or friendship from Joe Biden. What he was looking for was a pragmatic relationship to protect the interests of his country, and that's what he did. The Russian president refused to budge on Ukraine. He opposed the idea of Ukraine joining the NATO. In fact, he said that it's a red line for Russia. He also refused to name Navalny, but cleared his stand on the crackdown on Navalny on live television. He also called the concerns over the militarization of the Arctic baseless. And that's not all. He called out America's double standards by underlining Washington's human rights records, exposing its fault lines and highlighting its rampant gun violence. For the US, the summit was about de-escalating tensions. One thing's for sure, this is not the Cold War, and Russia is no longer America's enemy number one. That position has now been occupied by China. What the US wants from Russia then is not friendship, but a predictable relationship. Russia and America will soon have ambassadors back in each other's capital city to start the process of a thaw. So here's a win for Joe Biden. But what he failed in doing was getting Putin to accept some responsibility for the cyber attacks. You see, cybersecurity was Washington's top priority here, but it made no gains there. Forget taking responsibility, Putin pointed the finger at the US, calling it the world's top source of cyber attacks. Did this summit help Joe Biden in painting a picture that America was back? I doubt it did. He failed to secure a commitment from Putin on a UN cross-border aid operation in Syria ahead of a showdown over it at the United Nations Security Council. So what happened here? Was the summit successful? The differences definitely outweighed the gains. Neither of the leaders invited the other to Washington or Moscow. Putin said the conditions needed to be right for that. And this summit failed to make it right. There was no breakthrough. The only headline from this summit is that there is none. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.